I think we can start with the talk right now. Uh,
Let's
uh,
begin.
sure. Okay. Good evening, everyone. A very warm welcome to the first session of Career Week hosted by Bits Embryo. I, Alhan Sitani, and my friend Saksham Kamboj will be your host for the session. Today's session will focus on the exciting field of biochemistry, and we are delighted to have two esteemed Bits Pilani alumni with us to share their valuable insights. Throughout Career Week, our goal is to help you explore the vast array of career opportunities available across various fields. Each session will provide a 360-degree perspective on different industries, followed by a Q&A segment where we encourage you to stay curious and ask questions.
It's my pleasure to introduce today's distinguished speakers. First, we have Mr. Chaitanya Panaluri, who joined BITS Pilani in 2001, holds an MSc Honours in Biological Sciences and an ME in Biotechnology, graduating in 2007. He later pursued his PhD at the University of Missouri, Kansas City, driven by his passion for epigenetics. Currently, he serves as a manager in new gene sequencing at New England Labs. We look forward to hearing more about his work and insights in this cutting edge field. Alana, I guess you're in mute.
Sorry. Next, I would like to welcome Ms. Meenakshi Balakrishnan, who graduated with a bachelor's degree in biological sciences from BITS Pilani in 2006. She went on to earn her PhD from the University of Central Florida and later completed a Master of Public Health at the University of Florida. She is now a clinical project manager at IQVIA. I'm sure the audience will be eager to hear and learn from my expertise and experience. We, we sincerely thank our speakers for taking the time out of their busy schedules and to share their valuable insights with the bright young minds from their alma mater.
Please join me in warmly welcoming our speakers for what promises to be an inspiring session. I invite the speakers to start the presentation now.
Okay.
Uh, Ma'am and sir, the stage is yours.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I would say thank you for the invitation, and we are maybe I can speak for Meena as well. We are very excited to be here today to talk to you all, understand where you are, and maybe give some insights from our experiences that we have gone through in the last decade or so. So I think Meenakshi is going to get started. So I'll give it up to her.
Yeah. And actually, Saksham and Alhan, thank you for introducing us. Part of the presentation, first of all, this is very informal. We just kept like it some sort of slide set format that will allow us to organize our thoughts and present our sort of our journeys, individual journeys, but also present opportunities that allow you to think beyond the traditional careers and so on. To give a little bit of background about myself, as you said, I graduated from BITS Pilani in 2006. I pursued just the MSc Honors Biological Sciences. I did not do a dual degree, and I think part of the reason was it was just my interest only in pursuing something in biomedical sciences. And I at the time I was opposed to doing anything related to engineering, and that was part of my personal choice. I would say it's just anything related to biological sciences always interested me. I did my PhD from University of Central Florida. And one of my choices for that university, as a graduate student, there are lots of practical considerations. Sometimes you also like aim for really great colleges. At the time it was up and coming. It's not a, I wouldn't say it was like 100% established compared to lots of other universities, but a big consideration is my program, especially the PhD program. I had a fellowship, and I didn't have to worry about tuition for the next foreseeable future, at least till I finish my graduate studies. That was part of the reason. And also other reasons is Florida, it's like India. It's like the southern part of India for me. Weather-wise, it's mostly hot and so on. I did my PhD in, with a focus on, it was mostly basic molecular biology research. And usually when it's like a PhD program, or the goals that are typically given to us are, like to find a, um, a new protein or a new molecule, for example, and try to characterize it. And that's kind of the aim of what I did. And I finished my PhD in about 4 years, and with meeting the basic requirements of the program. And traditionally, most people go on to do like a postdoctoral research experience, and I did that as well for 2 years. It was at a different setting. It was kind of between an industry and an academic setting. I worked at um, a at a company. It was called Lidos, and they've changed their name like multiple times since then. But they're like an affiliate of the National Cancer Institute in the US, and they are a little bit more commercialized, where you're not just doing basic research, but you're trying to develop an assay that could eventually be commercialized. And I was working developing like prototype assays and so on. I think going on from there after like 2 years of postdoctoral experience, also due to like personal reasons and stuff like that, I kind of had like a realization that I want to branch out from doing the basic sciences. And that's why my interest in keeping the scientific background and also but pursuing a master of public health, which would still allow me to be in an affiliated field. And I would say master of public health was also very enlightening because it's very different and unlike biological sciences. It's a big shift, but it's also a related shift, I would say. But I got the opportunity while I was pursuing my master's, and to keep working on like a research project. I got introduced to clinical research in that process, where it's more clinically driven and working with patients and recruiting patients for like clinical trials and research studies and so on. That's how I started my journey at the University of Florida after I graduated from my master's, and I worked as a research manager there for like about 6.5 years. And then since then, I've moved on to a more industrial setting where I work on, clinical trials directly. And in my role, I help companies, like especially like pharmaceutical company or biotech companies that have a product, but they don't have the infrastructure to run the clinical trials. And so we help them all the way from protocol development all the way to publishing the clinical study report. And oftentimes my group specializes in the early phases of clinical trials, where it's a lot more narrower and usually working with a smaller population of either healthy volunteers or patients. And it's very exciting, and which we will touch upon a little bit as we go further into our conversation, because it does. You do need to have like a scientific background, but also you need to have like a lot of like people skills and project management experience as well. So it's very different. That's just a little bit about my sort of career pathway. I wanted to make sure that Chaitanya also has an opportunity to walk through his journey before we kind of go on to other opportunities that people can pursue.
Yeah, maybe Meena, I can talk about it as we go to later in the slides with the different
Okay.
options that we have. So you can go ahead with what we have planned.
Okay, that sounds good. um, and I, just for the sake of it, I have introduced definition to biochemistry. I don't think I need to tell you guys, obviously it is the study of chemical processes within and related to living organisms, but it is a vast field, and I think it has a lot of technical and scientific complexity that is very important and maybe a lot of people don't understand. And biochemistry does help us to solve not just like solution, like come up with solutions at the molecular mechanisms, understanding the molecular mechanisms of life and living organisms, but also it has immense potential to like lead to developments in like medicine, agriculture, environmental science, and any of our day-to-day living functions. um, Obviously in a high school level, I think we tend to focus on biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And pretty early on, I would say in our high school journey, we have that distinction whether you go into like an engineering based, uh, heavily based like mathematics, computer science sort of field, or you pursue more of the hard sciences like biology, chemistry, physics. But those are the fundamentals, as you all are here in your pathway. And typically most people do like an undergraduate degree, just like you are all pursuing in biological sciences, biochemistry, chemistry, or related field. Sometimes these tend to be really broad. degrees, and then eventually, you have your own specialty that you develop, like genetics, molecular biology, organic chemistry, physical chemistry, and so on. And the typical journey for someone who is pursuing biochemistry is, and is really interested in that, is to go on to do, like, advanced degrees like masters and a doctoral degree, especially if you are interested in like a research based or academic based position. I think those are the typical journey for anyone. And just to talk about some career options, for example, like these are just like, roles and job titles, but I think the actual role that you see in the industry are pretty varied, and it can vary depending on the type of organization that you work in, right? So the most traditional role that you would do fresh from a biochemistry degree is like to play a biochemist. And so basically you work on new products or technologies, and you work in universities, research institutions, pharmaceutical companies, where there is a heavily scientific role, where you'll be like, um, developing experiments, and testing these experiments, and working on products and testing products, but all related to a biochemistry focus. There are roles like chemical technician, for example, and these would be involving, assisting chemists and engineers in research and development. This also is a highly technical role where you have to have the technical expertise to, conduct experiments, analyze results, and these individuals, they work in like manufacturing plants and laboratories. Other roles you can think of are like forensic scientist, where it would involve, analyzing physical evidence from crime scenes to help solve criminal cases. This is definitely a little more unusual. Probably we see in movies and stuff, but not an option that I know a lot of people pursue. Um, and then, pharmacologist. This is also like one of those roles that's highly specialized. You do require like advanced degree and sort of skills as well that you have to develop along the way, because it's not just understanding the uh, like, the basic chemistry and the basic molecular mechanism, but eventually you'll have to understand how these drugs are like metabolized in the body, and you have to understand the study of these drugs and chemicals on biological systems. So it's a very highly skilled and specialized role. For example, like in clinical trials, for example, like there are people that focus on, like, pharmacology and pharmacokinetics. They have very specialized and deep understanding of how the drugs actually like are metabolized in the body. You have to have like a really good, both like statistical, but also like a um, like a chemical and biological background as well, understanding the mechanism of how the drug goes through the body. So that is a pretty interesting role as well that comes from, this degree. And you have more of a clinical associate, a clinical research associate role, and this is more cater towards clinical trials, for example, where you work on, get to oversee clinical trials, and you get to test different drugs and treatments. And the typical environments would be like, hospitals, academic sites, where they are able to recruit patients, or healthy volunteers, pharmaceutical companies, and research organizations. And so this is a broad based role as well, where you're working with patients directly. The biomedical scientist is very similar to the biochemist role, um, where you are sort of like developing experiments on a day-to-day basis. Biotechnology research scientist, biotechnology. Maybe Chaitanya will have a better understanding. It's certainly different. There are distinctions in the terms, and I think in the application, biotechnology also involves like, manipulating biological organisms to develop new products and technologies. Genetically modified crops, for example, and new medical treatments as well have emerged from that. And you would find like biotechnology companies, research labs, and universities that are places to work. Environmental scientists, this is something that a lot of people wouldn't be thinking about commonly, because you use your understanding of biochemistry to understand and study the environment and develop solutions to environmental problems such as pollution, toxic substances, and how to deal with them, and pollution control, conservation, and so on. There are lots of definitely like government agencies, environmental consulting firms, and non-profit organizations around these. Toxicologist is a related role where you understand the effects of chemicals on living organisms and environment. And often you're also like reviewing the safety of these products and in relation to the environment, and also like how it reacts in the human body and so on. um, I won't go over every single one of them, but I think the whole point is to make you guys think that, uh, be aware that there are lots of career opportunities that you can pursue with your degree. um, the journey to getting there is not necessarily easy. For example, that's the reason we in like also like included this as part of the presentation. Like roles like genetic counselor, for example, you use your understanding of like genetics, and also you have to understand the science behind why these mutations are occurring and so on, and communicating that also has like certain like legal but also like public health sort of implication, and communicating that with people involves a different skill set altogether. And this is particularly important for lots of like cancer based diseases, especially where there's a heavy focus on understanding what is your genetic sort of makeup that may be determining why you're having a certain disease and so on. And food scientists, this is another like sort of exciting role, but I think the entire role focuses on the study of chemistry and biology and engineering, but on food, and to understand the safety, quality, and nutritional value, and how food is developed for like different types of uh, companies and so on. And one of my personal favorites that I want to allow people to consider is also science writer. For example, you may have excellent communication skills. For example, you need to have a very strong understanding of the sciences, but also be able to communicate that with people. And that is a special skill. That is certainly something that people should consider. Think being able to like explain your product or your project or research project. You always have like a 3-minute pitch, 5-minute pitch, they say. And like being able to communicate that to a non-scientific audience in the correct way and in a responsible way is an important skill as well. So that is certainly something you guys should consider. um, we touched upon a lot of these things. Not to say that those are the only job titles, but there are definitely, these are just like sort of the wide array of top career roles that you can think of. But as you are looking to pursue these options, right, what are some of the skills that are required for you to acquire along the way? Think you need to have really strong analytical skills, and being able to analyze complex data and conduct detailed research. And sometimes oftentimes the research starts with very small and very focused questions. Being able to analyze that into an information, that is important. um, Technical skills, and this comes with time and practice, and depends on how much you have made the effort to like work with different types of laboratory techniques, equipment, and software. This is not exactly easy to obtain, but it just like takes a concerted effort in trying to get in touch with the correct type of professors and researchers, and to find the opportunity to work on these types of equipment. I think I already touched upon communication skills. These are really important because at the end of the day, you have to be able to present your research and your ideas very clearly, write detailed reports, and there's a lot of attention to detail that goes into writing these reports. And of course, you have to have problem solving skills as well, because in some of these scientific careers, it's all about developing solutions. Sometimes you have to start from scratch. Sometimes you have to entirely scratch an idea and then like start from the beginning again. And so being able to develop solutions and willing to test out these different solutions, that's part of the problem solving skills as well. And of course, there are lots of soft skills that you kind of learn from these type of scientific roles. Is one is persistence. It's something very important that nobody is born with it, but I think you have to kind of develop along the way. I think these for you to consider, it's a very slow, it can be a very slow and long journey, so you have to be willing to be persistent. whether it's setting up an experiment or seeing your research idea develop from something really small to something more tangible. Obviously, like in most drug research, as you can think about it, it takes like 30 to 40 years to develop a good product, and oftentimes only like 10% of the studies and trials that we do are actually successful and result in commercial products. So you can imagine there is a large amount of work and time and effort that goes into this, and that's and then you kind of learn from that and you build on from that experience as to what works and doesn't work. So it's all related to that. You should be not afraid to fail. I know it's not something that we all like, but we kind of are forced to learn along the way. And be willing to experiment, and sometimes you have to do these experiments multiple times for establishing reliability, confirm the results, and testing at different sorts of environments and so on. So it's all about repetition. And teamwork and collaboration is, it may sound like a very simple thing, but it's probably one of the most important elements to how successful you are pretty much in any career pathway that you take. And sometimes a lot of these research works and really top notch research comes out from excellent collaboration, because it's not possible to just be a lone person and do this research. You have to have really good connections with different types of researchers and be willing to learn from the different skills of researchers. Sometimes someone comes with a specialty, someone else has this other specialty that can take their you know science from one way to another, and so that's important. We already touched upon attention to detail and adaptability as well. I think this is fairly important probably in any career field, and sometimes you're trying a certain thing and you want to keep going forward and it may not be working. You have to kind of take a break, try something else, be willing to switch, be willing to pivot. Um, and and so that's where a lot of these inherent skills and the soft skills also come into place. Um, let's see. Overall, while you're there, Chaitanya is going to definitely present a little bit more about your journey while you're in BITS. I think overall, some tips and techniques for you to build these biochemistry skills and build your experience. You cannot get away from doing laboratory experience and hands-on research. If you are thinking of pursuing a career in biochemistry, you need to understand how, laboratory works, how to run experiments, and so on. Have to familiarize yourself with research techniques, and this comes both from literature search, but also like doing the hands-on experiment and being up to date with like the current research techniques. And literature search and review is also like really important because it gives you an idea as to what has already been published, and or if there are any new and unexplored questions in research. Oftentimes that comes from your um, literature search. And work with experienced researchers and professors and gain the hands-on experience. And if at all possible, find opportunities to present your research at conferences, present posters, or author research papers. I think those are all good ways to help build your experience over time, and it kind of also shows that you're willing to go the extra mile to like establish yourself and that you're serious about your research and so on. Um, we can talk about this. There are obviously like lots of future prospects, and we can figure this out. I just put this in here, but I will now transition to Chaitanya.
Okay, so I think Meenakshi gave you a really good overview and an insight into all the different options that are out there. Like if you think about what you can do, maybe I can put my perspective with respect to what I was thinking as I was at BITS and how did I move into different roles and different things that I did. So maybe if you can advance the slide once. So while at BITS, what can you do? So first and foremost, figure out which aspect of biology do you like. I mean, do you like working in the lab? Do you like looking at data and analyzing the data? Do you like communicating about the science, the biology, so you can go into a scientific writer? Like, or do you like really understanding and digging down into how things work, so you are in a position to advise other folks. So there are different paths that you can take. For me, I enjoyed working in the lab, so I would spend hours on just being in the lab. I didn't go to many of the classes that were there. I picked and choose like the select ones that I really wanted to go, but I spent vast majority of the time in the lab working with other PhD folks who were there and working with other master's students and tech students in the lab. So I was trying to learn my biology in the lab. So I'm a hands-on person. That's what drives me to do things. So that's what worked for me. Okay, if we can move. Uh, so I think it's also important because we are blessed to be at BITS and have the opportunity of doing different kinds of coursework and understanding different aspects of different fields. So like you can bring in learnings from other fields to biology, and you can do the same thing. You can take the learnings from biology and move it to other fields and other coursework that you are doing. So like uh, I enjoyed doing some what do you call security analysis and portfolio management kind of courses. So trying to understand where the market is, or how the market works, so you understand what kind of pressures are there on companies who are working in scientific field, and how does that translate to what they're doing, how they position themselves. Meenakshi was talking about it taking for a long time to get to a product. So they are answerable to shareholders. So that kind of relationship you want to understand, that makes you in a better position, puts you in a better position to really relate to what's happening in the outside world. So you are not like completely in a silo thinking, oh, this is the most important thing. I'm the most important one in this whole organization. It's actually a team. You cannot do anything by yourself. You need the marketing, you need the strategy, you need someone who's looking at finances along with the biology that you're doing. You can't do one or the other. You need to do all of them. So like you need to be in a position to understand what other people are facing in the same organization. So I think that's important to have that perspective. Maybe you can advance few slides. Yeah, okay. So as I said, so I worked in the lab. I When I was there, I didn't have a lot of interest in bioinformatics. I didn't do much while I was there. I would say that's a regret that I have now. I've Since then I have picked up that skill. I've worked really hard to understand that. The first year computer science, whatever the course that we did, I don't know whether you guys do it or not. It was a very basic rudimentary course, but I didn't pay too much attention in it. But I wish I did. So I would say if you have the opportunity to expose yourself to looking at data analysis, that's an important facet to doing science, doing biochemistry, because it's all about the data at the end of the day, and how you visualize it, how you analyze it, how you present it. That helps you drive the hypothesis, helps you come up with why is this working? Can you see it? That's the whole most important thing I would say. And then the other thing, the two public health, Meenakshi already talked about it, being in the clinical space, being in the policy space. So to be there, you want to also understand the basics of the science behind it. So right, so that's a good option. The other thing is intellectual property. That's where the money is for the companies. That's what is you can use to raise funds. Companies go against each other. The claims are there, and you somebody tries to validate, somebody tries to invalidate those. So again, having that understanding or having that perspective that okay, this is I had no clue when I was at BITS. I didn't know anything about it. But then I had friends who did the same course with me, who actually went into these companies in India, and then they worked there for a few years, and then they went out and started their own intellectual property rights companies. So, and they've been very, very successful doing that. So I think that's again one more aspect. So being at BITS, you are exposed to different things, different way of thinking. So you can put that to use where you are saying, okay, I have these skills. I'm analytical. I am good at communication. I am good at problem solving. I'm good at understanding the science. I can put all of these together. That's essentially what IP is, right? You are drilling down to the basic concepts of what the discovery is and understanding that, okay, this is what this is saying. Am I different or am I the same? So having that perspective will again give you an insight into something that people really want to know. So you being in a position to provide that will make a nice case for you to be hired. So I think that those are things that I would say you would want to think about while you are at BITS. And then few advance again to drive all of these points. Practice school, use the practice school as an option to go to the right place, so you are able to leverage more experience from that and make connections, talk to different people outside the institution and all of that. So that will be good. So what's next after that? So there are multiple choices after that. So I hope you all like biology, you all like biochemistry, or want to be in this field. Figure out whether you're interested in wet lab, data analysis, policy fronts, or combination of other fields. Have that cemented in your head, or do you have an idea that you want worth exploring as a startup? I mean, it was not a case for us when we were back in college. It was not that big of a thing. I think I've seen many companies come through BITS now. So I think you guys are in a very nice environment where you are able to again leverage that experience from other folks, your immediate seniors, few years seniors, incubators that are on campus and things like that. So you can brainstorm your ideas. If you have a thing that, okay, I can do this better than anybody else, so you should give it a shot. Think about it. Okay, if we move, I would say
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Yeah. So I considered graduate school. I was like, you know what? I really enjoy doing science. I want to pursue a higher degree. I want to go further. So I had two choices. Either I had the choice of staying back at BITS. I was already there for about 6.5 years. I did my undergrad and master's being a teaching assistant. So I was there for 6.5 years. I was working with Dr. Das. He's still there. He's a fantastic mentor. He gave me the opportunity to stay back, but at the same time, he was like, you want to go explore more things, go explore. He encouraged me to do that. So I think we are lucky that way, that faculty are always looking out for us and wanting to make our careers meaningful for us, so fulfilling. So I took the opportunity to go out, and then I went into a very small university again, just like Meenakshi. I mean, even smaller than that. I was the first student in the lab. So my mentor was my PhD mentor. He was starting his lab. I was his first student. It was a fantastic experience, and it was also a crazy experience. So it was all wrapped up. It's never one way. It's never very straight. It's always like you'll either have scientific issues, you'll have financial issues, or you'll have like personality issues. You can have many of these things. It's all about navigating. So I was talking to one of our friends, and he was just telling, PhD, what do you get when you do a PhD? I think PhD tells you or teaches you how to solve problems. Essentially, that's what it boils down to. Your ability to solve problems. And that's where the money is. That's where the career is. No matter what the area is afterwards. I did MSc Honors Bio and MA Biotech, right? I didn't come to BITS with a biology background. I came to BITS with a maths, physics, chemistry background. So I changed there. And then I finished that. And when I went for my PhD, I went into a school of pharmacy program. So I did an interdisciplinary PhD focusing on pharmacy and cellular molecular biology. So again, I was trying to diversify my experiences that I was having. So I did a lot of analytical work. So even though I don't do that anymore right now, but when I'm talking to people, or when I look at publications or look at other companies, what they're doing, I have a better sense of, okay, this is where they're coming from. This is the issue that they're trying to solve, and I can relate to that issue very well. I'm like, oh yeah, this makes sense, this is important. you you, you can pick up on things if people are just giving you a BS, or they're actually really making something, doing something worthwhile. So again, having that opportunity and ability to look at a diversified, so make, again, essence of my take home is try to diversify your skill set. So that's what Meenakshi did as well, right? She went and did a PhD, and she did a master's in public health, and she went into clinical trials. She managed the clinic recruitment. She, like, it's like kind of you're expanding what your skill set is, and then you are finding where the right fit for you and for the company or the university or the institute that is looking to hire you, and then that's where you are moving towards. Okay, so then we can go forward. I think we can just skip through. Yeah.
Okay.
So essentially, this is the path that I took. Right, I went to BITS. I then went to graduate school. I finished my PhD. I was looking for jobs. I applied for tons of jobs. I didn't get any calls back. It was I would say the darkest period of my career. It was also when in the US the recession was happening, and we were just coming out of all of that. And then I got one call. That's it. It changed my life. I went for a postdoc, but that postdoc was at New England Biolabs. And then I never left. I stayed there. So essentially, make the most of the opportunity that you get. Right? You want to showcase why they want to keep you. Why, what can you bring to the table? Like, you want to be the best at every opportunity that you get. So because you never know how many opportunities you're going to get. I mean, that's a maybe a pessimistic way of looking at it, but at the same time, that's more of a grounded way of looking at it in my perspective, because it's like you don't know what's out there in the world. So you want to be, whatever you're doing, wherever you are, you do the best that you can do. And then, so for my part, I went to postdoc in the industry. You can do a postdoc in academics as well, in a university setting or a research institute, and then you can stay back in academics or stay or come back to industry in one way or the other if that's what you want to do. So I was in industry. I knew I didn't want to go to academics, so I stayed in industry. I was there, and then I've had friends across my journey in BITS and my university at Missouri, or in the postdoc at NEB, who have done different things moving on from there. Some of them have gone into big pharma, like Novartis, Sanofi, GSK, uh, you name it, Pfizer, and all that. Some people stayed back in biotech, like me, uh, essentially looking at technology development and all of those kind of things. Some folks have gone into clinical labs, like Meenakshi, and then some have gone into public health. Like, I know folks who are doing things at FDA, CDC, so they are in the realm of public health and all of that. And then there are also folks who are doing biotech consultancy. They work for Deloitte or other big three consultancy firms. Actually, they are looking at trying to help other companies go through, figure out what works, what is not working, where should they strategize, move ahead. So these kind of things. I think there's endless scope as long as you are focusing on what you are clear on the path that you want to take. And then doesn't mean that you have to take this path. You can always do other things outside of this. You can just go straight from bits to do something else. You can start your own company or things like that. So I think I'll probably end there and then leave some time for anyone to have, if they have any questions, and we are happy to take anything.
Let me stop sharing. Questions.
Okay. First of all, I mean, that was a great presentation. I'd like to thank both of you, Mr. Chaitanya and Ms. Meenakshi, for an insightful and thought-provoking presentation. I'm confident that all of us appreciated it, and we'd like to further ask you a few questions
Mm-hmm.
for further clarifying the subject for our audience. So first of all, as you mentioned, what we should do at BITS, I would like to know a little bit about your life at BITS, and I mean, did you participate in clubs, or were you academically more focused, or did you participate in research groups? And finally, professionally, how did your experience at BITS help you?
I mean, I didn't part. I was almost in dopey, and I didn't join. So, but I was very active in the lab. So that's what my participation was. And then I was part of DOSA. That's what we used to call just the audience, just being there and participating in everything else that is happening. Uh, but I think it's invaluable to be part of clubs, and because you get to learn a lot of things being there, how like teamwork and planning and executing on the plans and all of those things. I think those are valuable skills that you can take out into the real world. So yeah, definitely, I would encourage you guys to be part of organizations, whatever shape or form they are.
Yeah, I would say from my journey as well, I think I was part of the music club. That is the only significant club that I was part of that was pretty much full time. But apart from that, I did not spend a lot of time at Chaitanya. I pretty much remember he was one of my mentors, even though it's been such a long journey. I think I was introduced to you and Ilamaran, and you guys were the ones helping me set up experiments and stuff. I remember you were always at the lab, Chaitanya. I was more of a reluctant lab rat. I just did it because, oh my God, it's my third year. I have to start working on experiments. I think that's how you kind of build your interest in research. I think it's also interesting, right? Because the setup at BITS is, you are exposed to all other fields in the first 2 years. You kind of have the same background, same classes. Nobody really has a chance to look into your specialization. And I think that takes a little bit of forethought and maturity, which certainly I didn't have at the time. I think it's something that you've like had to develop over time. And I think along my journey, for example, at BITS, right, it solidified what I don't want to do. It just reinforced my belief that I was not cut out for engineering, so I knew it. And so this is sort of I think the allure of the sciences and just the topics and so on was interesting. And I think being and trying to fit in with a broader and a very diverse group of people, that I think is a survival skill that you learn from BITS and you take everywhere as you go along. Because people come from all over India, and it's very new just staying outside of home, uh, being in protected environment at 16 years you've lived at home taken care of by your parents, and suddenly being in like a completely different state, far away from home and going through harsh weather, right? Like, and that is, those are all like sort of like extremely good skills that helped, say, maybe me and probably Chaitanya too, like as we moved to the US, for example. And it's a completely different country, but a lot of those elements were already there in us, like compared to a lot of students, for example. It didn't bother us. It was very easy for us to transition.
Yeah.
Compared to those who probably just directly came from home for the first time to do their masters and so on. So you're tougher. You are already like experienced to living outside and being more independent and managing yourself. So that's one thing that is very valuable from BITS.
Okay, I'd like to continue with a follow-up question with this. What's one thing that you think that's unique about BITS, and I mean, it gave you an edge later in your career? What's one thing that BITS does it differently and helps students in their future professional life?
I mean, from my perspective, it's the ability to intermingle with folks from different groups, and also being or having the opportunity or exposure to different fields, right? Whether you like it or not, whether you enjoy it or not, but you're still exposed to all of those things. So you have that understanding of where different people are coming from. That makes you really strong at communication, right? You can empathize with other people. That's big part of your everyday conversation communication, right? If you're not able to empathize with other people's problems, they cannot empathize with you. They cannot be part of a solution for you. if you're not being a part of a solution for someone else, right? So that's something that we all gain at bits, and that's something we learn. Like, oh, my wingy is doing triple E, he's having issues with one of the course, or the prof is being too harsh or whatever, but you are getting that understanding and that exposure. So I think for me at least, that's the skill that I really took forward everywhere I went. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say the education system at BITS itself is very progressive, as you all are aware, like, compared to other universities, for example, who have a set format. Starting from the GPA system, it's very similar to the education system here in the US. I almost felt like BITS was harder for me than studying masters or my PhD here, for example, coursework wise, and some of the rigor of curriculum that we have faced is more intense. And that I would say was a plus, because many people may not be exposed to that kind of system. I think the ability to sort of pick and choose, um, they're also having like electives. There's a lot of freedom, I think, in bits that we get, which is a very, I would say it's a privilege. Most undergraduate universities that I know of, like from personal experience and family members who have gone to other institutions, you don't have that kind of progressive mindset. So that was a really good thing about bits, and uh, you know sets you up for success later as well.
All right. So I had one question about the PhD programs. So Meenakshi, ma'am, you spent about 4 years doing your PhD, and Chaitanya sir, you spent about 6 years doing your PhD. So
Hmm.
uh, it's a perception in people's mind that PhD takes a lot of time, and you're essentially stuck in the academia forever. And so I wanted to know, what career opportunities does it actually open for you, or does it help you decide or explore more of what you actually wanted to do? So if you could throw some light on that.
You want to take that first, Meenakshi?
Yeah, I think it's definitely a loaded but a great question. Chaitanya and I were talking about it the other day as we were prepping. I think one is, I think, depending on the mentor that you pick, right? That's very important. It is something that you cannot change after the fact. We do have opportunities to rotate through different professors before we pick even though you may have chosen a program based on talking to a certain professor. That's what happened in my case, but it's still in the first year we were made to rotate through three different labs of your choice, and then only we started our research itself. So the first year pretty much just goes into exposing yourself to different types of research, right? And then along the way you have to certainly think about questions like how well funded is your lab. For example, here in the US, definitely there's a lot of emphasis on professors and researchers, especially in academic setting when you're doing your PhD, to have funding. And so a lot of your work, half your work goes into just securing very good funding, securing good collaborations. So picking a lab that has good funding, and also like lots of other undergraduate students and graduate students from whom you can tap into. And sometimes, if you're lucky, you get to work with a professor who's very well connected, both academically or maybe with the industry, I think. And so working with those types of people are also really important. I don't think intuitively, for example, in my journey, I don't think I knew all this when I was getting into it. I think I was more looking into, oh, I love the work that you're doing, this is great. And then you kind of learn along the way. Like every program has its different requirements. In my program, for example, the requirement is you're doing your research, you should have two first author publications, and I had it, and that was enough for me to graduate. But does it set you up for success? Probably not. Two is not enough. Everybody knows that. Two is like the bare minimum. So it is, lots of factors at play. I think also, we, like Chaitanya alluded to earlier, I think we graduated at a very tough time. It was right at the peak of recession, and it was very, very challenging. And plus, being in a different country, we had to deal with, immigration requirements. I feel like my journey has always been about that. I don't think, I like to complain about that, saying that was one of the reasons why I could actually not find the opportunities, because people, unlike engineering or a lot of these higher paying jobs, for example, people are not willing to sponsor like your visa. like basic stuff, right? Like you have survival issues, and that kind of gets in the way. And then if you get lucky, you get in the right place, and so on. You get set up with stuff. So it's not a straightforward role, I would say. Definitely you don't get that linear trajectory that you see in some careers. Maybe all careers have evolved nowadays. I think everyone needs to have, like, two sets of skills, three sets of skills that they can diversify on. At the end of it, if you ask me, was the PhD worth it? I would say yeah, it was worth it, because it is nice to have that in your title, in your name, because it shows to people that, you know what, I did accomplish something. Is it necessary to get jobs? Not at all. Like, it depends on the industry. You can have a master's very well, you can do undergraduate degree very well, and you can be highly skilled, and you can still get to do really great jobs. But generally, the way I think the corporate ladder at least has been set up, even academic ladder, right? Like, the more you have a degree, the higher degree it is, it's better for you to progress. They do consider you for key roles and stuff like that. Like, if for somebody with just an undergraduate degree, it would be a lot harder to prove yourself, at least in a traditional job role and setting. So I'll stop there. I'll give Chaitanya the chance to talk also.
No, I think you hit on all the points. So essentially, I mean, uh, I, yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, you need to, like, it's a balance. So as I said, I was the first student in the lab, so it was very different for me. Like, there was nothing in the lab when I got there, literally nothing. So it was like we would set up everything. So again, that's something that I really loved doing, and appreciate that I did it, because then now I know how to do it if I have to do it. I know where to go, what to do, how to do, whom to ask for these kind of things. I think that's a learning that not everybody gets it. So I think it's all for me. I would say be open, keep your eyes wide open, listen to everything that's going around you, absorb as much as you can, and that's what is going to set you for success down the road. Yeah.
And I'll say there is one sort of currency. I like to call it currency because, publications is a good currency that people like to measure. And some people are actually happy with that. And I think the PhD and, the kind of advanced degrees in research gives you the opportunity to do it. A lot of people measure success by how many, how much money we make, for example, or how much you're going through the corporate ladder, for example. They may not, you have to be willing to think beyond that. And I think that's kind of the side effect, I think, that you get from choosing a career path like this. You don't get to do what everybody else does. For example, in my family, or in my very close setting, I don't know anyone that does what I do. So for me, that's a good talking point, right? Like, I can talk about this, and like, I don't have engineers, like, I don't have to deal with that stuff. What do you do? Oh, you actually do this. They find it actually really cool to say, oh, you guys actually work on trials. Even the research that we publish, I remember showing my first publication to my dad. He was like, what is this? I was like, forget it. It's a different kind of joy. I think, like, being an academic also sometimes can give you a very different type of like joy. So it is something that you have to live and learn. It is not something that you can foresee, is what I would say. Like, sometimes you can, lab work is not cut out for everybody. And I realized that after 4 years of doing the grind. And then I was like, oh, I don't think I want to do this. So that's kind of but Chaitanya loves it. He, like,
Yep.
if you ask him, he's like, I'm not going to consider anything else, right? So that's where you kind of have to live the experience and figure out, this does this work for you or not.
Yep.
Okay, I think we can move on to the next question. Here at BITS, there are a lot more engineering students or technical background students than biology students per se. Uh, and many students feel that biology has fewer job opportunities as compared to other technical or engineering fields. I would like to know what's your take on this, and also during your time, I mean, there would be lesser opportunities in the field of biology because the job market in biology has changed in the past few years. Also, I would like to ask you, are there more opportunities now, and what these students today can explore?
Oh, definitely there are more opportunities now. I think Meenakshi put all of those things out, right? All the different ways
Hmm.
of looking at it. I mean, I I never even thought about scientific writer. I never even thought about a consultancy role in the field of biology. I mean, those things didn't occur to me, or they didn't exist that commonly. So there are many more opportunities right now compared to where we were when we graduated. So yeah, and then comparing to other fields, I think that's kind of I don't think it's a fair comparison to make, because it is always going to be it's a more niche, narrower area than a wider engineering field. So I think it's going to be different. You cannot compare; those are not things that you can compare to each other. But there are definitely more opportunities right now.
Yeah, and I think that's where those identifying those key skills and tying it to your basic interest or core interest of biological sciences is really important. But along the way, for example, it does help if you have really strong mathematical or statistical background, then
Yeah,
it puts you up to certain roles doing the exact same thing, but just with an application in biology. But you're going to be able to analyze data really well, and you would have an understanding, and then you use your presentation skills to present that, right? So it's definitely a multifaceted role. It is specialized. It is not as easy as just like getting into, like, we definitely had that struggle compared to like software, for example. Even in terms of practice school, right, we have
yeah,
two places I think that are given, compared to 50 or something compared to other institutions, right? Two or four I think we had probably. And
yeah.
but those spots are very limited, like you get only like one or two spots that get there, right? So yeah, I think that's where I think some of those working hands on, then you kind of understand, like, is this going to work for you or not? Do you actually enjoy doing this? And then sets you up for research opportunities. I do understand, like, lots of probably our seniors have come back to India as well, right, to like establish their own like research labs, and working as professors and research institutions, top and premier research institutions, working with hospitals also have like a research sort of thing, right? So just thinking, mm, outside the box for those types of roles is going to help you. I think
All
the
right,
audience had
so
some questions, right? So
mhm, I guess Kush would like to ask one question.
Thank you, Meenakshi and Chaitanya, for all the insights and details you have shared us with till now. Since both of you had a long research careers, you would have had a lot of mentors over the years. I would like to ask you that, did you specifically choose your mentors or got allotted somewhere in the process? This comes from an experience, because I had to work on a project recently. It was not related to biochem, but there were lot of ablations to be run. So, but the other students in the lab were not as motivated as me. So all the work was, sort of thrown upon me. So I thought that I have not chosen a good mentor for that project. So how does that process work? How do you identify a good mentor?
I mean, I think I would say that there is no such concept as a good mentor or a bad mentor where you are at this point of time. Because all you should be focused on is the experience. The experience that you just had right now, you're talking about, that's a great experience to have, because that teaches you that, okay, there are situations where not everybody is going to pull their weight. And how do you deal with that? I mean, that's a constant in your career. I mean, it's going to happen. So then this is a learning moment. You can be like, okay, I can do this to get along with everybody else, and maybe you be the leader, and then be like, okay, I need to move this along. Or your mentor saw something in you, so he's like, you know what, this he can do it, so he's giving you the opportunity. So you look at it from a positive perspective every way. I mean, that's the only way you can move these things forward. And then choosing mentors, so I chose my PhD mentor because he advertised at bits. I saw that and I liked what he was going to do, so I went. Do Okay, hindsight, I would say I 80% of the way I was right. I got what I wanted from that experience. 20% I didn't like what I got from that experience, but that's life. That's how it's going to be. And then the next, you keep on moving and you make the most of whatever opportunity you get. So at least that's my perspective. That's where I come from.
Yeah. And I think that is very important, right? Like, one is, I think, also talking to different types of people. You'll understand not everyone is interested in taking the time and effort to actually sit and, some people like to do it. Some people are just more inherently or intuitively good at it. Others are not. I think some people are definitely very self serving, right? So you just have to, but that is still an experience to learn, and you have to deal with that. And like Chaitanya said, it is, look at it as an opportunity to be independent. For example, what did you learn from it? You did the best with the information you had. You did it independently, and so rightfully you should claim the credit for it as well. So it's just like stuff like that. But it doesn't mean that that doesn't mean that not everyone is willing to mentor. You just have to keep talking and having an open mind in working with lots of people to get that till you get what you want.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, I think next question would be by Anmol Saxena.
Yeah, hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I just want to ask. So basically, I'm a CS student. That's my first year. And before I came here, I was doing studying for JEE. And as a general thing, at least in India, it's either you study for JEE or you go for NEET, medical or engineering, and others. No offense to the others. So basically, I came here on a CS degree, and I had my bio in my first semester, and I was surprised that bio actually found it quite interesting. And now it's second semester, and I'm a bit confused. I think I want to pursue bio, but I'm studying for CS, so I don't really know how to do that. So I just want to ask, do you guys have any advice on how to do that?
Yeah, we have a convert here.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
I would say do a dual degree. I would like, it's a fantastic combination to have, like understanding and ability in the computer science field and the biology field would set you apart. Like, there's a huge demand for data analysis, big data, computational programming, like coming up with algorithms and all of that. So I think there's a huge market out there. So I would that's a no-brainer to me. Yeah.
Yeah, I would say yes to pursue both. But you could always, like, pick projects that are bio based, for example, like working with large data sets or like, assisting with some kind of complex data analysis or coming up with an AI model or whatever, right? Like whatever that the CS people do to simplify certain things, you will realize there is lots of opportunity to do that, especially with data, because there's lots of data that is being collected on these types of things. Like in clinical, for example, clinical data management is an important aspect of it. It's not all just computer science skills, but they also have data programmers. You need to have both, like some sort of SaaS programming skills plus some basic software skills, which just is faster and better if you have that background already. Um, if you can pursue both, that would be my advice too.
Okay. Okay. I do want to ask though, how do I, like, okay, I'm not 100% sure if dual degree is the right path for me. I just want to explore a bit more bio for now. So how do I go
Mhm.
about exploring?
And take electives in biology. I mean, take the you instead of taking something else in your third year, or pick up courses that are, say, I don't even remember what courses. I mean, I remember what I did. I don't know whether you have all those courses now or not. But pick something in biotechnology, something in, like, or yeah, think, look at the coursework that you have there, and then try to pick something that is more general than very specific in biology, so that you get a wider view of what's going on, and then explore that, or even go talk to the professors and then see if you can do a lab-oriented project if those still exist, and then but do it in the data analysis field. Talk to a bioinformatics oriented faculty there, and then go with them, and then figure out what you can do with it. I mean, if you don't want to take that jump into dual degree, but at least I would say explore these other opportunities as well. Like try to expose yourself to as much of the bio background as possible, so you get a better sense of what you want to do.
All right,
Okay,
next up in the
okay.
queue.
Thank
Mhm.
you so much. Yes.
Mhm. I think Anmol, do you have and further follow-ups, or is your question have been answered?
Oh, yeah, it's been answered. It's been answered.
Okay. Next up we have Juhi Madhwani. Please go ahead with your question.
Hi, I'm actually a pharmacy major. I'm in my
Mm-hmm.
third year, pre-final year. So, like, most of our friends are applying for masters, right? So, like, our friends from different departments say EECS. They get their publications handy. Like, uh, so we do a lot of wet lab work, right? So it is very difficult, or like it takes a lot of time to have a publication. But EECS people, like, they do have a lot of in silico work. So they have in handy, and they have it in their CV. So like since we do not have a publication, do not get publication so easily, but we since I did a lot of wet lab work in labs. So how do I portray that in my grad applications? Also this question that you have an option for a dissertation or a PS, right? If you choose a PS and do not like do a thesis, how much will it affect? Thank you.
I would say it doesn't matter because I think there are ways to. It is about communicating your work that you did. For example, you can come up with 4 or 5 bullet points to outline, the basic of your research project you did, hands-on experimentation in XYZ, something like that. You could say that, and then I think highlight the techniques that you learned along the way, and that is going to be important. I think just having publication, yeah, it is helpful, but everyone knows it's difficult to publish, but also you could think about publishing differently as well. Sometimes it doesn't have to always have results. You can publish a literature review, for example, if you have the time and the patience and a mentor who is willing to help with you. Sometimes people do like systematic review of the literature on a topic, right? That is a way to get published something without actually having real data for you to show. And so there are opportunities if you have the time to build along the way. That is something you can explore, but it is still more valuable that you have the lab experience and you just have to market it and express it correctly.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I didn't have a publication when I applied for my graduate school. I mean, it's not a hindrance. I mean, again, that's the thing. You don't have to compare to other groups directly. They're not direct comparisons because the field is different, the work style is different. So, and I would I would say, at least I'm maybe biased in this opinion, but I would rather go do a PS, because then you are exposed to different ways of thinking and different institutions, different practices, and all of that. So you already are in a position to understand. Okay, this is what's the different styles, and then what you like and what you don't like. You get that exposure as well. So I would choose PS over staying back. I did both. I stayed back in my masters, and I went uh, for PS in my undergrad. So I did both of those.
And I think, like you said, the for the longest time, I used the experience in the practice school as well, because you have to do a project at the end of the day. It's not
Hmm.
like you only get practical experience. You have to show your work. You have to have like an entire, book, or like, practically with introduction, background of the problem, solution, conclusion, and stuff like that. You just have to put that into words and explain it in your 1 or 2 page resume.
Also, like, apart from your research experience or GPA, do you think any other key factor for like in your application that stands out?
I mean, show US, if you're trying to apply in the US, folks here really like a well-rounded application. They don't like someone who is just solely focused on one aspect of their like academics, just doing that. So I think having showcasing that you are able to do other things, are involved in other things, and you are a leader, you have your own thoughts, and like how you are part of a team but also still leading the team, or having your bringing your own ideas to make fusion, all of those, I think showcasing that makes a huge difference.
Thank you.
Okay, I think next question is from Rucha Kulkarni.
Yeah, hello. Could anyone please confirm if am I audible or not?
Yep.
Yes,
Yeah.
you're audible.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you both of you. It was a really great session. So to be mentioning, I am a third year pharmacy student here at BITS. And as Sir said earlier about the lab thing, me personally, I have always been inclined towards the lab work and all the experimentations that are going on. Also, at the same time, it is very difficult. I face difficulty in gathering all the mugging up all the chemistry what is going on, like the theoretical part, the academics what it is. And um, and to be adding to it, I want to pursue my masters and not decided for the PhD yet, but yeah, I need to pursue my higher studies. So is there any advice that you could give me to handle it out?
I think you mentioned a key thing that you find difficult. So maybe that is something that you want to decide whether you want to explore or not, right? Because it's going to be technical. I'm not saying you have to memorize things all the time, but at the end of the day, there will be basic electives and so on. And biochemistry, I remember the biochemistry course was extremely challenging. It's a nightmare. You get through it and you're like, that's it. Okay, now I can handle anything. But like you kind of develop that along the way. I wouldn't rush into doing a PhD. I can tell from personal experience, it is not for all. Like I told you again in my journey, did I need it? Probably not. But do I think that it was valuable? Yes. So don't jump into PhD. I think masters is a good way to do it, but having that sort of like building those side sort of expertise as well in like publishing, doing that. Until you do it, you won't know whether you like it or not. So there is just no way around getting around it. Just doing a coursework for the sake of it doesn't make sense, but it is helpful to dip into all that. And that's why your masters or PhD or any of those opportunities allows you to explore those. If you have the chance at bits itself, you should explore it and then see if you can, it's worth your time or not, because then it's a valuable 2 to 3 years of your life that you're investing, potentially much longer if it's PhD. So it is up to you and how soon you'd like to get into the job market, for example, or get into the real world. um,
Yeah. And then like my experience, I'm probably like you to a degree. I didn't care so much for reading things up. But then when I was doing my PhD, since I was in the pharmacy school, it was very different from what I did in bits. So there were things where I was like, okay, I need to really understand the basics of these. So I went back, I took a course, I took the undergrad 101, the first year's organic chemistry course, because that's what I needed. So I think at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. Like you may not like it now, but as you are moving through your career and through your things, you may find that you need it, and at that point, you will figure out and you get it. So, and as you gain more understanding of things, it doesn't become like you are memorizing things. You are actually getting to the point where you are understanding the ground framework of everything that's happening, why it is the way it is, and then you don't have to remember it. You can so you think through the solution problem and come up with a solution. So I think it's a well, in the moment when you're doing it as part of your coursework, it's a different way. Sometimes we all it doesn't click, but then when you are trying to think of it as an application for what you're trying to do, to have that basic understanding, then you come from a different viewpoint. So I think don't worry too much about whether I'm able to remember or whether I this is the only way I'm able to do it. It will change over time.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Mhm.
All right, I think this is we have exhausted the time limit for the talk.
Yeah.
And should there be any questions, we'll have them forwarded to you over text.
Okay.
So I would like to thank Mrs. Chaitanya Panluri and Ms. Meenakshi Balakrishnan for taking out time from their busy schedules and for sharing their journey and knowledge with us. Thank you, ma'am and sir. And thank you to everyone for being an engaging part of this talk and just being interactive as a whole. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
I
you.
echo that. I appreciate the questions and the sharing your thought process. So it was good. Happy to
Yeah.
be part of this. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think thank you, Saksham, for reaching out and organizing
Hmm.
it. I think it's a great thing you're doing for students. I think it's nice to talk to people who have kind of lived through the journey and kind of like understand this. And um, I'm very happy to be back. I haven't had a chance to come back to Bits after I graduated. I think through you guys, I'm at least like interacting with students. It's been enlightening for me as well. To
Hmm.
understand. And so thank you for the opportunity.
All
Okay.
right, I think we can end the call and people can leave if they want to.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
Glad to
Thanks,
have
See you
you on
everyone.
guys.
board.
Yeah. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Hope to
So,
see you in the
guys.
near future. Thank you.
Thank you.